All right, folks, we are 2 minutes past the hour. I think we can jump in to our session today. Thank you, everybody, so much for joining. My name is Parker Highland. I'm one of our outbound product managers focusing on the lovely AIOps product as part of ITOM. And today, as part of our Power Hours series, we've got 90 minutes on monitoring and metrics. We're going to start out with just a few slides today going over just high level details of what metrics are and what role they serve in the AIOps kind of story. And then our team here, Dominic, with assistance from Dennis and some other colleagues to jump in and handle questions and answers in the Zoom chat, are going to go through some very fun demos in our product. So without any further ado, we'll get into the content. We have a quick safe harbor notice. There's a roadmap section at the end if you're interested in what is coming next from a monitoring and metric perspective as part of our upcoming Yokohama release. We'll be discussing that at the end, and as such, these are forward-looking. We try our best to deliver what we talk about, but as everything is in the future, things are subject to change. And if you're wondering what we are doing today, I'll let Dominic go through the agenda here in just a moment, but I do want to direct your attention to this QR code. Feel free to pull your phone out, take a picture. This quiz is open now, or this is open now. We'll also have a link at the end, and it's an opportunity for you to submit feedback on this session, on what you'd like to see in future sessions, and if you would like as well, if you were with us yesterday in the event management section, the QR code was actually incorrect. So if you'd like to submit some feedback from yesterday's session, you can do that on the same link attached there. I'll be back in a little bit to talk about our roadmap, but for now, I'd like to pass it over to my colleague Dominic to talk about what we're doing and to get into the lovely nooks and crannies of monitoring and metrics.
Cool. Thanks, Parker.
Of course. Do you want to take over sharing?
Yeah, I'll take over sharing. Just can you all see my screen?
We
Yeah,
actually
but
see the speaker notes.
do swap display, yeah.
Okay. Just there you go.
That's it.
Okay. So, as Parker said, this is the second part of the series that we're doing. The first part was Magnus covered event management and core platform capabilities. Magnus went through a lot of the high-level slides. We're not going to cover that today. We do have a few positioning slides, and then I'm going to jump in and show you exactly what it looks like in the platform. And what we're going to show you is how we extend your monitoring capability with our own in-house capability through Agent Client Collector for monitoring. We're going to walk through some experience monitoring, and these are the new synthetic transactions monitoring that's come about. It's in the innovations labs at the moment. We'll show you what that looks like, how we use it, how it's utilized on the platform. We're also going to show you some service reliability workspaces and how we use the service reliability workspaces. But more importantly, what I'm going to show you is how we pull it all together. And I'm going to show you how a large financial organization use all these in place to be able to deliver their what we call their operational resilience. Any questions, just type in the questions bar, and I'm sure one of my colleagues will pick them up. If there's any questions that we can answer, we'll answer at the end, or they'll pick them up as we go along with the demo. So I'm just going to start positioning where we sit with metrics and monitoring today. And the way that I analogize it, or the way that I talk about it, is in three real key areas. The first area is discovery. You have to discover what's out there to start off with. You have to be able to see what's out there to start off with. And then the second phase is really visibility. Visibility is how we tie everything together and how is it a relationship with everything else. So it's not just about seeing the end device or the end component that you're managing or monitoring. It's about how does that connect to the rest of its world. And that can be anything from down. So let's be as an example, we discover a piece of network kit. How does that connect to the server? How does that server connect to a disk drive? How does that disk drive connect to an application and so on? And all the way, right the way up to the application. There's two types of infrastructure that we manage. There's the actual metadata, as an example here from the cloud. We're bringing in metadata, which gives you all your cloud availability and your cloud components, and then we tie that to the infrastructure data as well. So we can give you a real good view of the infrastructure data through visibility. However, the next phase is really how do you observe that? How does it react to everything else? And how does it impact everything else? Okay, so we're going to look at that today through metrics and monitoring. How do we use those metrics and monitoring alerts to be able to bring that to life for you for a real customer? So starting with this slide, we understand that everything comes up into a critical business service or a business service. We also understand that not all services are critical. We also understand that you'll have a plethora of tools out there and teams who are using their own monitoring tools to be able to talk and discover the infrastructure. With a large customer yesterday, and they were saying that they have several different tools that they're using to manage their infrastructure team. And the biggest problem is their infrastructure team are really wedded to their tools. Okay, and they're managing their own piece of infrastructure in isolation. They don't understand the relationship of the components together that build up the service. And in reality, we call this ITIL version 4, and this is what's generating your incident tasks and problems. However, all those machines are making a lot of noise. And this is where we come into the events, logs, and metrics analogy. Magnuson covered events yesterday, and events to me is very binary. An event is something that's either on or off. It's either up or down, or it's either responding or not responding. Where a metric is more linear. It's a time series over time. How is that behaving over time? And more importantly, what are the signals that we're getting from those infrastructure that can show you where you have problems occurring or going to have problems occurring? And then finally, logs, which is what we're going to cover tomorrow on logs, is really about how is it actually performing and what is the log health. But all that is generating you a lot of noise. And what we say, and Magnus showed this yesterday, is where first part was where we reduce that noise. Where do we find the anomalies or the normalization in that data to be able to normalize it? And again, we're using our algorithms to bring this together to be able to reduce that noise between 70 and 90% of noise. Then we do event management correlation. Is it up? Is it down? Do we have any relationships within that? And in today's part, we're going to talk about the metric and the metric anomaly and how we detect the metrics and trace the metrics over time and build you a confidence band on those metrics. So this now where we're not actually setting you any real thresholds, if it reaches 95%, send me an alert. That we're learning that over time because of the amount of noise that's being generated from those tools. Okay, and again, what we can do is we can even augment it with our own agent client collector and our own metric collectors to be able to bring that and process that metrics as well, and events and logs. And then tomorrow we're going to talk about the events correlation, about the logs and the logs and traces. However, when you look at it, if you've got incident, problem, change, events, logs, and metrics all on the same system, what you're actually delivering is giving you the ability to predict issues quicker, to prevent root causes and identify issues quicker, and then to automate on intelligence. And again, I was with a customer this morning where they said they want to automate on everything. And it was like, yes, we'll start with automating on intelligence, what we find from those signals that we're getting through events or metrics. Metric anomaly detection has a method and a process that we follow, and I'm just going to go through this quickly. We ingest the metrics, we learn from those metrics, we isolate random components and signals from those metrics, and then we train the algorithms to learn on that. We then validate that, and then we give it a score. And this is where we get the confidence band and the normality scope that's happening. You can train this way before it becomes a critical alert for the system. So it gives you the ability to be able to train on those metrics, on ingesting those metrics, and train on the system. Two clear concepts we have anomaly alert versus IT alert. So an anomaly alert is a sandbox where you would actually bring this into and learn as you go along. And then eventually what you would do with that anomaly alert, you could still track it, you could still measure it. And I'm going to show you this in the product in a moment, but you then bring that into it and you promote it into an anomaly alert, which is what's going to see in the alert screen, and it's an IT alert generated. We have a really good blog that's been written about this one from one of my team members. The link's in this documentation here. I would suggest that you read this blog. It's really powerful, really good, really well written blog on how to do this. So let me show you in product now what that looks like. So this is real world scenario. We have a large financial organization that are using events, logs, and metrics to be able to monitor their infrastructure. And again, the real world example, this wasn't this year, but it was last year. They had a Black Friday event where their faster retail payment systems have gone down. They're able to identify really quickly that the faster retail payment system has gone down without waiting for users to phone up and say, I can't process a payment. And they're doing that because they're monitoring their infrastructure. So how does that look like? So when you actually look at this service and we go into the service, this faster retail payment system, and Magnus would have showed you these service maps before. Here's where we're actually monitoring not just the application itself, but we're also monitoring the infrastructure that underlies that application. And this is the visibility. And what I talked about earlier is the relationship between all this. So now we're observing the relationship between all this, and we're also observing the critical signals that's being sent. So as you can see down here, we've got some systems that's being sent down here from a Linux server. But what we're doing here is we're displaying this over a time frame. So now we can see not just how is my application performing from up and down. We know it's red because we can see it's red. But also on the timeline below, we can see what metric alerts that we've got. So giving them visibility of how their application is not just performing up and down, but how is it performing against the norm that we see? And I'll show you that in a minute. So this is why it's so important to have that observability, not just to be able to discover it and visually map it, but also now to overlay those events and metrics on top of it. When we go back to the system here, we can see that the system had a problem with a faster retail payment system. Now, again, with most organizations, you can see that they may have multiple applications that support their infrastructure. And you can see all these applications here. So we rate them from not so critical to most critical. So we can now start operating on the most critical ones. However, we want to get a bit more focused, and this is where we bring in the service reliability manager capability to be able to look at the capability of the service. And we can see here from the service reliability manager that we have a risk on the faster retail payment systems. With the concept of an error budget, and what this error budget is doing, it's looking at all the events, logs, and metrics and burning them down. So as an example, when this error budget reaches a critical level, it's going to raise it at risk. So in reality, while the service is still at risk, do I want to do any changes or any amendments to the service? Possibly not. And when we look at these at risks, we can see the metrics that we're actually tracing for these systems. So while that's loading. So it's all about how do we feed those metrics? I'm going to go into more details in a moment with the metrics. How do we feed those metrics up into a single system? And here's the metrics that we're chasing. We're actually chasing 3 defined metrics in this instance. We're looking for error code 404. Okay. And what the error code 404 is, that's that binary thing. Is it there? Is it not there? So we're looking for this error code 404 in a specific log file. And we set those up through their monitoring capability. We're also looking for failed logins, and you can see here it's the failed logins. And again, this is binary. It's either failed or successful. It's binary. However, here we have a temporal one. So we're looking at HTTP response times over time. And we can actually drill into this, and we can see the metrics being displayed in real time over the dashboard. So our site reliability engineers can actually come into here now and monitor just their service. More details, what is the OLA, SLO, SLI that's failed, and where has it failed? And then they can action upon that. How do we get the events? And again, Magnus showed you this yesterday. With the events, we can go into the event viewer, and we can see here we have all the events that we have down here, and these are clustered. And again, this is using that machine machine learning algorithm to cluster these events. And you can see here, we can see we have a problem with a faster retail payment system. Okay, and we can drill down into that. Okay, so we're going to drill down into this one. We're going to have a look at this one. So if we look at this one here, expand that out. We can see it's a disk space that's at risk. We can see we have some Gen AI going on here with the normalization of the system. But more down here, because we're specifically talking about metrics and monitoring metrics, we can look at the system down here. We can actually go into the components itself, and we can look at those components. And we can look at those, how are those components working on its own metrics. So do we have any alerts or events for it? Yeah, we can come down here and we can see, yes, we have some current incidents and we have some open alerts for it. And this is what Magnuson was saying yesterday, where we correlate those alerts together. We can see now we have, but more importantly, do we have any metrics for it? We can click here and see the metrics for it. And we're using our technology here to pull those metrics in from the end device. And again, here you can change the timing of CPU, disk space, and all the rest of the good stuff. But now you can really dive into more explanatory metrics with those. We can start to look at those metrics. Now, the key thing here is we give you the core metrics here. So we can sort of look at the disk space, and we're going to bring you the disk space in. We can change the date time, and I'm going to change the date time quickly, just to give you an example, so we can see some extra data. Just change that to okay. So you can see here now with the metrics that we have some metrics over here, and we have some below the confidence band of normality. And these would have what triggered your alerts. If I overlay the alerts onto these, you can see down here that we've had an alert triggered. So what's happened here, having what I've discussed, is we build a confidence band. This is what we expected to see between, it looks like 45 and 55. It's breached anomaly up here. And again, what we've done here, we've said raise an IT alert, and we've raised an IT alert, which generates us an alert, which is then added to that alert group that we shown earlier on. But the key thing here now is not only are we observing this in its singularity and what the alerts are telling us for that single device, we can start to look at what does it look over more different devices. So again, here we're looking at the faster retail payment system. We can start to add in total response time for the HTTP request. We can start to add in the code. We can start to add, and in fact, I'm going to add the total response time in here. And you can see here how this metric isolated on that one server impacts this metric down here. Now, again, what we're seeing with normal teams is there'll be one team managing this metric that understand there is a failure. And in this case, it's just a log file. But in this down here, this same team is managing a different metric. Historically, what we see is customers will be raising two incidents because this team down here that's monitoring this metric have no concept of this team up here. Because now we have that service reliability map going through, we can understand the relationship of the metrics. So now they can say, I don't need to raise an incident here for my metric that I'm looking at in isolation because it is associated to this metric and we're only raising one incident. So again, what this does, it drives those behaviors in war rooms where we can look at where the root cause is. We can identify where the root cause is. And again, with these metrics, you can add multiple metrics. But again, the core thing here is we're looking at the singularity of the object here for the metric. But here we're looking at the more round, who else is generating metrics for me and being able to monitor on those metrics. So that's how we lose the site reliability manager. And again, we can come into here and it can show us multiple things. It can show us how many incidents, how many alerts, events we have open for that. What are my endpoints? What are my integrations? So where am I integrating my tools into the system here? Which systems are bringing it through? And again, some of these are bringing through events. Some of these are bringing it through metrics. Yeah. We can also look at what are the open incidents for it. And again, with Site Reliability Manager, what we can do is actually look at the open incidents. And you can see here the two open incidents that's specifically for my faster retail payment systems, but they underpin the business application. We can come into the business application itself, into the incident itself, and we can start to triage the incident. And again, the metrics, and that will come into this here. But more importantly, what we can do is now we can look at who's on call for that system. And what that's going to show me, that's going to show me my on-call teams. When I go into my on-call teams, I can even look at the metrics for my team. So when I look at the metrics for my team that's on call for this system, I can see how many average daily incidents they have, how many resolved in the last day, how many open incident, and so on and so on and so on. More importantly, I can see the schedule for my team. I can create the schedules for my team from Site Reliability Manager to who's supporting me. So again, I'm now managing my full stack app right from detection right the way through to correct, right the way through to who's going to resolve it in ServiceNow. And again, all that is built from the Site Reliability Manager. And then finally, so we may want to add some extra function and functionality to it. The new feature that's been brought in, it's in the Innovation Labs, is we can actually bring in new metrics called synthetic transaction. So now we can fire a synthetic transaction across the line that's able to bring in that data for us. And again, this is a metric data. So it's bringing in actually two, it's bringing in a binary data. So what is the, let me change that to a more realistic. Okay, so what is the response code? So we're looking for the response code here to that synthetic transaction, and we're looking for an error 200. And again, we're telling the system, if we don't see this system, raise me an alert for that. And more importantly, we're looking at the actual response code, response time as well. So where this is binary, 200 or not 200, this is linear over time. So again, we can start to trend on this. And again, this is coming in Innovations Labs where you can set this up yourself. Your engineers can set this up themselves. Yeah. All they really need to do is set up a simple URL link and also tell us, do you want us to create an alert? Do you want it to be critical? And how often do you want it to be able to do that? So again, this can now be added into the event screens to be able to correlate on more on the events. And again, you can see here where they came in from, multiple sources, multiple metrics or events that's been brought in. And then from that, we can actually go back to the system and we can identify the system, and then we can start to resolve that incident as and when it happens. So that's really how we use metrics on the system. We're bringing in all those signals from all those multiple tools that you have out there. We're not saying replace those tools with our own. What we are saying is you have the capability to augment and enrich those tools with our own tool. We have the capability to bring them in and be able to populate those on the system. Okay, stop sharing that. Stop sharing the slides. Are there any questions? Are there any questions on the chat?
No questions on the chat, Dominic.
So you can see how
Oh, I did just see a hand raise and then go back down. If you do have a question and would like to raise your hand, I'd be happy to give you the opportunity to chime in. Otherwise, Dominic, I think you can continue.
Okay. So you can see how we bring those signals into the platform.
And just to be clear, I'm seeing the roadmap slide. Is that intended?
So you can see how we bring in those signals into the system. We process those signals. We then turn those signals into actionable alerts. And it's those actionable alerts that we look at in the alert screen. And it's those what we can change. You can train the module as we go along, so it learns metrics. and you can learn any metrics that you have out there. So it's capable of defining it. You can capable of defining your own metrics. You can either we suggest you bring those in through our agent client collector for monitoring capability to populate the CMDB with those in metrics as well. And with that, I'll hand you back to Parker.
Yeah, very cool. So I just have some upcoming enhancements to talk about. We are there's a lot that's coming in Yokohama. And if you were with us yesterday, you'll recognize these themes. But the Yokohama release includes both platform improvements and then also product-specific improvements, like those that we're bringing to AIOps and specifically to the realm of monitoring and metrics. We've got a good reminder here just
Management yesterday with Magnuson. We've talked about monitoring and metrics and the importance of monitoring and metrics, and more importantly, the importance how they interact with the rest of the world, and they enrich that monitoring experience for you, especially around the metrics. We talked about how we populate the metrics and also how we're using the metrics in multiple scenarios within the ServiceNow platform. Tomorrow, we are going to talk about health log analytics and how we enrich that. So this is really around the incident, problem, change, events, logs, and metrics all in the same platform, and how we can really bring it all to life for you and reduce that mean time to repair. Finally, if you can just fill in the quick survey for the power hour, any feedback is greatly received. Yeah, and with that, I think we'll close off. If there's no questions, is there any questions? Okay. I think we can close off.